Good afternoon and welcome to AskTheHealthSystemCIO.com All-Stars, a complimentary webinar from HealthSystemCIO.com. And one of our segment sponsors today around the medical device security discussion is Proofpoint. A little housekeeping before we get started. My name is Anthony Guerra. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of HealthSystemCIO.com. We're going to have a free-flowing discussion on 3 different topics today. You can ask your questions at any time. If they pertain to the current discussion, we'll ask them right away. And if they're not, if they're sort of off-topic, we'll hold them till the end of the event. You can go ahead and type them into the Q&A box, the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and leave the default set to all panelists. You can see the URL for the slide deck on the screen. I'll send it out in the chat box, and there's a shortened URL at the bottom of all the slides. And we are recording today's event, and we'll have that excuse me, up on YouTube within 2 business days, probably sooner. So we see our panel for today, Cara Babachicos, Corporate Director of IS and CIO for the community hospitals and non-acute entities at Partners Healthcare. And we've got Chuck Christian, VP of VP of Technology and Engagement with the Indiana Health Information Exchange, and Buddy Hickman, EVP and CIO at Albany Medical Center. So a great panel. It's some background information in your slide deck on each panelist, and you could take that with you. And here's our topics. We're going to go about 45 minutes. First, we're going to discuss cloud migrations. Then we'll cover meaningful use stages 2 and 3, lots to talk about there. And then we'll talk about hackable medical devices. Again, that segment is sponsored by Proofpoint, and we know there's been a bunch in the news about that topic. Okay, so first we're going to set the stage for our cloud migrations topic based on some articles that we've reviewed over the past month. Things that have come up and things people have discussed. So pros, some of the pros of people moving things into the cloud, and this is from an article in CIO Magazine. We see about reducing the time that IT professionals are spending on mundane tasks and allowing them to focus on more strategic initiatives, obviously connected there. And we see security is the biggest concern for those who are considering moving into the cloud. So we will discuss that. From Harvard Business Review, we see there's a chart here of a survey, and again, security practices most important and the #1 concern when you're sort of giving your data to someone else. ROI is supposed to be, well, 40% saying there's an ROI there, which that doesn't mean that the other 60% are saying there isn't. But again, there's supposedly an ROI there and allowing organizations to move at a higher speed. Some of the questions is, all clouds are not created equal, so questions around how well you manage the cloud will sort of determine how you're going to do with that investment. And there's the concept we see of a multi-cloud strategy and a mix of environments, and making those work together and making multiple vendors work together, which is sort of one of the definitions of the CIO job. And it's been brought up here that we see that occasionally, and again, this is the old CIO nemesis, it's the departmental buy where IT is not brought into the discussion. And then we have the concept of cloud first, where some government entities have gone there and some private entities are following. And we suppose that means you opt cloud, and if you're not opting cloud, you have to explain why. So there's a little table setting for the the concept and the trend of people moving into the cloud. So let me get some overall thoughts from each of our panelists, then we can go a little bit deeper. Buddy, why don't you start in and tell me your thoughts around the cloud, some of these issues that I've brought up. Just handle that however you like, and we'll go from there.
Well, I like this slide that you present from the Harvard Business Review, because it certainly is indicative of how we think about looking at cloud computing. A couple of instances where we've looked to the cloud would include, for example, we are building a new portal, actually, to stand in front of our patient portal. It will consider things that we need to be doing with population health management that go beyond the capabilities of some of the commercial product stuff that's out there. and we're doing it in a way that we can commercialize it later with another company that's in here working with us. Now, we're looking at hosting that in the Google Cloud, so stepping through all of the understandings of especially security and how also we'll integrate that layer-wise with other things that reside here at the Med Center is key. Another example of where we're doing something with this is with some of the tools that are out there that are open tools even in the Google Cloud that might help us better identify certain things, like, for instance, how our patient population dispersion works by disease category and other such things. Now, having said that, the security side of it, Anthony, is daunting. I think the bigger you are, the more you're a target, and we're starting to see that come true if you look at the big data breaches that are occurring, because it seems like they are getting bigger and bigger, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about security and medical device stuff later, but even just, I think it was yesterday, here in New York State, Excel of Blue Cross Blue Shield began sending out letters to notify almost 10 million people of a breach that occurred that they noticed in August, and looks like it might have occurred even as far back as 2013 forward. So the kinds of things that we're concerned with now in the security world are bigger than what most of us can address locally. We need all kinds of players working with us. So that's an upside and downside, because it may well be that some of these cloud players might be able to do a better job if we find out how indeed they're doing threat monitoring and event detection.
Cara, you want to talk about the cloud a little bit?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of different things that actually Buddy spoke to already that I agree with. The security piece is probably one of the foremost concerns. And some of the work that we've done is ensuring that the cloud providers are like SOC Level 2 compliant and have two-factor authentication and some of the things that are really important to us all. The other piece is also there is potential savings and a lot of significant savings with probably personnel related to if you move servers, let's say, off into the cloud. But, you know, there's also some trade-offs and things to think about, kind of knowing if your data is being shared with on a server with others or if it's kind of isolated in a way. If you're looking at cloud services, thinking about when you take a product in, how much ability do you have to customize it, and is it really what you see is what you get? And then I'd say some other things come down to the cultural changes that we'd have to look at. So if you're trying to go with, let's say, a new solution for email and other things, how reliant are you on the documents and the type of documents that you move around in your organization? So, you know, are you willing to go with like a PDF instead of, let's say, another type of document style? And so there's a lot of different things to look at, as well as is a cloud provider going to deliver everything you need related to all the touch points for what you might be moving off to the cloud? So if it's a transaction system or if it's your primary electronic health record, but you need other things along with it, like integration touch points and complementary apps, will they house those apps as well, or does it create another unintended consequence on the side of the person selling off or actually moving the product off-site? So those are some different ways of looking at it, some different angles, but I definitely think it's a smart move where we can to look at you know, reducing costs if that's the way, and looking for things that can easily be simplicitly moved off into the cloud without adding too much complication.
Chuck?
Well, thanks very much. I'm a more recent convert to the cloud stuff. When I was the CIO at Southwest Indiana, I was concerned that, you know, if we moved a lot of stuff off to the cloud with the way that the high-tech regs, HIPAA regs and stuff were, it was going to leave me at, you know, great risk if there would happen to be a breach. And with some of the more recent changes to the regulations and legislation specifically around high-tech, I've become more converted. And since now I work for the Health Information Exchange, everything we have is in the cloud. Actually, I work really hard to make sure that we have nothing on premise, because we run a private cloud. It's actually in an extremely hardened data center that is redundant and duplicated. we have information and on about 14 million people. So we try very hard to make sure that is secure. The other thing is some of the things we look at moving off of the cloud, and I did this when I was in Georgia, was the fact is that there are things that we don't really need related around core competency. I don't know if anybody in the audience has currently stood up their own Exchange servers on premise, but if you're going to create the redundancy that you need, particularly for email traffic, and be able to archive and that kind of stuff, that's really an expensive endeavor. And if you look at the total cost of ownership against a cloud solution like Office 365, and some of the providers of that right now, it's actually a little bit more cost effective. And you don't have to worry about the architecture and infrastructure, and you don't have to worry about how do you get people VPN back in or using an SSL VPN to get back in. It's all in the cloud, it's all taken care of through those providers. And so I think as we move forward, that's going to be, the cloud-based solution is going to be more advantageous from a business perspective because, we're letting someone who's really good at securing data centers and making sure that, if somebody happened to break in their offices, anything that's not nailed down is encrypted, and so we don't have to worry about, well, we do worry about it, but I have less concern, I should say, that someone's going to, break in, steal a server, and what am I going to do then? And I just don't have to worry about the overhead of that as well. So I think there's some great advantages of cloud computing, but as Buddy and Cara both mentioned, it doesn't mean that we don't have to do our due diligence in making sure that we hold our vendors that in our cloud architecture accountable for their security. We do site visits and look at their certification. We have all that documented, and then we also have a security company that comes in behind us and making sure that we haven't done overlooked something and not done something that we should related to securing that data, even though it's not on our premise.
Very good. Question coming from the audience. Seems like moving test QA environments to the cloud could be quick wins with lower risk than moving production systems. Agree or disagree? Buddy?
I would agree so long as your test train or other non-prod solutions have been, clearly expunged of PHI or real data.
Cara?
I'd agree to a certain point, but you also have to make sure that part of what you're testing isn't also response time and other components that you might lose if it's not an exact replica of your environment. So if you're testing out in the cloud and doing a lot of that and then bringing it in-house only to find that you have a lot of latency issues or there's things with the software that you may have picked up if you're doing mass production testing in-house that you wouldn't have noticed because of the cloud infrastructure. It might kind of give you, it might not be the same server-to-server comparison, if you will, and some things to consider.
Chuck?
Yep, I would agree with both, is that, maybe some quick wins, but depending upon, the architecture, typically QA and test environments are not architected exactly identical to the live production environments because of a variety of reasons, and I used to throw them on, I'd slice up a VM or two to run test and QA systems because they just don't require the same horsepower. So you just have to watch and make sure that you're not going to increase your costs associated with those environments when you do that. But, the really nice thing about it is you can, if you're running a virtual environment, you can spin those servers up pretty quickly, but you have to look at the fine print. It's what we have to do. It depends on how those contracts are written for those cloud vendors, if they're going to charge you for every server you spin up, and if there's what they call their boots on their ground, if there's going to be associated costs related to that, or if that's something that that you can maintain, but it's all about how you contract for their services in the cloud.
All right, very good. I think we're ready to move on to the next discussion point, which is a very big one, at least as far as I can tell. So let's go over some of what's happening with meaningful use stages 2 and 3. Let me set the groundwork, and then we can have our discussion. So a few days ago, less than a week ago, CMS passed over to OMB the stage 3 final rule or proposed rule and stage 2 modification, which is interesting. When you have a final rule, it's not really a final rule because then you have modifications. So the definition of final is in question there. And some of the things that were requested, everybody wants a 90-day reporting period. That's in there. I don't know if it's pretty much going to be passed, or we'll have to see. And then we have other things that are being sort of requested in the stage 2 modification. And OMB has 90 days. So, and we'll go over in the next few slides how everyone is absolutely clamoring to get that stage 2 modification and see what's going to be done there. But even though it's over to OMB, OMB has now 90 days, and there is no minimum, so they can ask for more time. And we'll just see in the next few slides that everyone's clamoring. You see the dates these are made, so it was a couple weeks ago. And everyone's been saying over the past month, even if they come up, finalized today, there's no time for vendors to deal with things. The MGMA, again, saying even if the final rule came out today, they said this on 9/1. The window of time that CMS is leaving medical groups and vendors to adjust is unacceptable, unrealistic. Hospitals aren't happy, even if the report, again, even if everybody sort of is echoing the same sentiment, even if we're done today, which we're not, that everyone's in trouble. Chime says, let's go. If providers do not receive the final rule shortly, it'll be very difficult to make workflow adjustments. We have some other things in here about some of the challenges that are being described about stage 2, which we can talk about. And then we have stage 3 and some of the things that are in there, clinical decision support. As representatives, there's different legislation looking to delay stage 3 rulemaking until 2017, even though the rule was sent over to OMB. And we'll go back, that's for the next segment. But basically we have a situation here where it seems like almost no one's happy with the timing of this. But Buddy, why don't you start and tell me your thoughts on what's going on?
If it's okay, I'd like to redirect it to Chuck.
Sure.
Chuck, from your perspective, given you are in part architect of the positions that Chime is taking, I know you are too, Cara.
Well, I think that I would agree with everything that everybody said about this as being too late. I mean, one of the things that I think everybody knows is, if the vendors are the ones that are trying to play, they're hedging their bet. If they were playing roulette, they'd be betting on the bar, I think, because they're trying to determine what is it they need to do. Because some of the messaging that we've gotten out of HHS is the fact that they're trying to figure out what they're doing with the quality measures. The quality measures have, from the very beginning of meaningful use, have been my most worrisome, because I know currently in how they're being established. But I think that one of the things that ONC is trying to do, and the policy committees and CMS, is they're trying to come up with something that's going to be reasonable, that's not going to create such a hardship on everyone, so more people can participate, and then they can actually have something they can hold people accountable for. And I think that everyone on the phone would agree that when the Stage 3 original NPRM came out, I just kind of shook my head and said, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, because one of the things that we struggle with is relate to the patient engagement piece, and I know in the modifications of stage 2 they've come up with a little different approach that did not make the patient advocacy groups happy, but I'm really surprised that the final rule didn't come out last Friday, because they have a real tendency to release those the Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock right before a holiday. So everybody can spend their holiday reading the regs and that kind of stuff. So, but I think that I really don't think OMB is going to take 90 days to get it out, because the October 1st starts the last possible reporting period for a calendar year that the hospitals and the medical groups could do, and so we really need to know as an industry is what these rules are going to be.
Cara, you want to let me know your thoughts about this?
Sure. Back in July, I actually went with Chime to Washington to meet with a lot of the decision makers and representatives to kind of talk about this. And I know that initially we were hoping to really get some clarity on the reporting period. I know people are really trying to get the final information so that we can be done with stage 2, get the reporting conducted, and then move on to stage 3 at a different point. I think the general feeling is, there's a lot we have to still get right, and that to push on stage 3 and deliver something that's incomplete at best is not probably the ideal. There's a huge gap in terms of the people that were considered for meaningful use, so the groups that were considered for meaningful use and the groups that have been left out, representing both community and the post-acute sites. I would say the post-acute sites have never had any conversations related to meaningful use yet that have shown that they're aware of or willing to do something with some of the regulations or some of the payment reform to help get long-term acute care and home care and rehabs all kind of brought into the meaningful use paradigm. And that as a result, you're kind of looking at the weakest link, right? So if you have a patient that goes across a continuum after they leave the acute care setting or the physician office, they are then part of the same problem that we're trying to solve, whereas, a lot of the systems aren't kept up to date, and I know that HIEs are trying to help direct that, but that's not going to solve it alone. And so we were hoping that stage 3 would kind of be put off a little bit, be more thoughtful, and then we could come off in a better place with a more holistic approach. That being said, it does not look like that's kind of where it's all moving to at this point. A lot of the hospitals are, eagerly awaiting the final word here. We assume that we're going to need some software changes in order to get to that point, and that it's not going to be simply they give us more clarity. And then there's also the pure issue that a lot of the organizations have probably started to book their financial reimbursement or their expected reimbursement for the meaningful use accomplishments, yet only to find that it might actually be more problematic. So I'm not sure how that's all going to play out as well if it can't be done in the fiscal year timetable for what hospitals are looking at. So a lot of hospitals have a fiscal year ending in September. So I'm not sure it's all going to make or work within those confines. That being said, I think we'll see where we go from here and what we can actually get from the formal direction that comes out, hopefully in the next week or so.
Buddy?
Well, I just want to offer something, maybe a different slant. I certainly am worried about what's going on with stage 3. I think most folks are, if they're kind of watching the dynamic that's occurring in Washington. I'll offer some random thoughts here that kind of stitch together. I think President Bush had the right idea in appointing David Brailer to lead the charge, and I do believe that David had a great vision, along with some of his cohorts, Lee Jones, Lori Evans, and such. And I believe we saw a nice succession of leaders at ONC there for a while, people who were strongly qualified, eminently committed to seeing us through sort of this vision of having a national health information network. I have been worried as of recent days with the lesser amount of energy and outcome that we're seeing coming out of ONC. I know others may feel the same way. I feel that we are at least seeing, well, a good thing about ONC, I'll say this, is that we had a voice. We clearly had an office to go to with a voice in Washington, and we may not have always seen everything happening the way that we wanted to see it, but we did have something organized there to take our ideas to and to advocate with. I'd offer at this point, though, I mean, maybe, just maybe, while we're seeing sort of some ebb and flow with ONC, it will kind of get its balance and we'll see some traction again. And at the same time, I'm glad to see what's happening with the Commonwealth Alliance and with sort of the whole interop viewpoint that's happening there. Because as I talk with, you know, my own bigger vendors that are engaged in that effort, there is a different sort of focus on interop that could bring much bigger gains as long as we can keep the traction moving there, and certainly across systems agnostically. So that's a good thing.
All right,
Anthony,
go ahead.
Let me offer another thought or two. You know, and Cara brought up a great point that I hadn't thought about, is that if you really think about the meaningful use regulations and what's going on with reimbursement right now with bundle payments and those type of things, sometimes it appears that they're at odds of each other because the meaningful use was focused mostly, if not every bit of it, on physician practices and hospitals. There was nothing related to post-acute care, nothing related to behavioral health, and then they take into consideration some of the new primary care mechanisms that are popping up, like CVS's minute clinics and Walgreens, Walmart, and you name it. And, you know, trying to capture all of that information so the next person that's going to treat that individual has that information. Because if you look at, you know, some of the modifications in stage 2 and in stage 3, they kind of watered down a little bit of the interoperability. And if you go back and look at the PCAST report and the JSON report, it was all about interoperability of basically setting the data free so it can flow, so more people can have access to it. So I think that as Buddy mentioned, I think with some of the leadership changes that have occurred, I don't believe that there's a single person left in ONC that has a historical perspective of the meaningful use program from the very beginning until now, because all those primary units individuals have gone on to other things, either in government or the private sector. So, the one thing that I was encouraged of, Dr. Salvo, I've had the privilege of meeting with her on many, many occasions, as all the other directors of ONC, but I really got the impression that Karen got it, and she actively listened every time any group would sit down with her of trying to figure out what we needed to do. And I'm hoping now that she's moving on to another role as Assistant Secretary that she can actually take a bigger voice in what's going on, even though she won't have the directorship of ONC in her title. So we'll see what happens.
Very good. Very good. All right. I think we are ready for our next discussion point. This segment is sponsored by Proofpoint, leading next-generation security and compliance company that provides cloud-based solutions for comprehensive threat protection, incident response, secure communications, social media security, compliance, archiving, and governance. And you can see some more information about Proofpoint there, and you can visit their site. We certainly appreciate their sponsorship of this segment of our discussion. So, a little bit of background information for our medical device security segment. As we know, it's August, early August. Information coming about the Hespera infusion system. Food and Drug Administration taken them off the market. The pumps have vulnerabilities, could allow unauthorized users to gain access. This was sort of a big wake-up call to everyone that the FDA is getting involved in this and actually pulled something off the market. We have here from John Halamka's blog. He wrote a piece about it. My view is that this will be the first of many advisories, and he notes, whenever I write about a topic, I avoid hyperbole. In this case, the threat is real. I have experienced it myself, and CIOs must act. And also, there was a posting on his talk where a pump was hacked and it was videotaped so everyone could see exactly how it works. So let's mix it up a little bit. Let's start with Cara. Tell me about your thoughts on this area and how the news, when all this news came out about these pumps, did that create a bit of I wouldn't say panic, but was that a wake-up call to the industry?
Well, I mean, I think that most of us have realized from early on that they're really just computers, right? A lot of the stuff we use are computers, and they need to be treated with a level of security and kind of protocols that you would do with anything on your network. So, yeah, of course. I mean, I even think about the implantable stuff, like pacemakers or insulin pumps. Like, imagine if, like, someone could figure out how to hack a person and actually get into their individual pacemaker or insulin pump. That is where it gets really scary. In our world, it's something we're always looking at. We try to keep it isolated on the network, and you try to do all the right protocols, but there's a lot of confusion around when you can touch devices. You know, the whole, if it's FDA certified, does it mean you can't touch it? I think that whole misnomer has been called out and corrected. But, you know, trying to patch them, the concerns around how you secure in the environment, and I think a lot of our organizations are starting to say we need people focused on biomed full-time. It's no longer part of someone's job or part of a CIO's job, or it's not necessarily something we can just outsource anymore because it is becoming a pretty real threat, and it's part of patient care, a direct connection point. So, yeah, I think it's real. I'm not surprised that you could figure out how to hack it, I guess is where I was going with the fact that they're computers. But it's like anything else. We're going to have to apply some different types of protectionary mechanisms because the hackers are just going to get smarter and smarter, and we're going to always be kind of trying to keep ahead of what they can do around these devices. But there are certain things, you know, I was at a conference last week and, you know, discussion, people are talking about different things about the vendors who, you know, are still running PC Anywhere and an environment that's not even being kept up with patches and you know, that stuff, we have to, as an industry, enforce that they can no longer work in that space. It's no longer okay to say it's different and outside of what we need to protect in our environment.
An interesting point that it may need some devoted special attention that it's not getting. Buddy, you want to comment?
Anthony, you may know the background, and some of our audience will as well, but certainly as of a year or so ago, middle of summer, the FDA created some energy about our industry needing to give this item some serious concern. And we all kind of went about the process then of doing our own assessments as to vulnerabilities that exist in the medical device world. We did it, you know, like we typically do around here, a very, very structured assessment where we looked at all of the various classes by manufacturer model of biomedical equipment that resides here at Albany Med. And eventually I found myself in dialogue with Will Pelgrin, who runs the Center for Internet Security. It's an agency that's based out of here, but actually does security monitoring for all the states in the U.S. as well as the territories, and does a lot of retained work for security agencies out of D.C. Guys, I pulled George McCulloch into it too. Because George, you know, at the time of that Bandy, it's where he took his CHIME executive role, and he ably jumped in because he comes from that clinical engineering background as well. We worked with Will to publish some things that he took to Washington around standards. I'm hopeful that it's been helpful to those folks involved. But for me, it was clearly a learning in the sense of you know, seeing how an industry has been so focused in driving something like HIPAA down the information technology computing side of what we do, and had not addressed elements that are actually critical and more invasive in the sense of giving care to our patients. So, Cara, you said it all right there in terms of the threat. From there, I'll offer, you know, you sit back and you look at the breaches that are happening these days, and the best thing any of us can do is, A, keep an eye on what's happening in the media, and then do our own background check, and B, talk to all of our colleagues. It is clear. I mean, go out and take a look at some of the things on the web that are published sources. It's clear that we have a significant threat occurring with China. In fact, you know, the question is whether or not Obama will implement sanctions as being considered, because those threats are that material. Everybody's wondering and trying to measure what the political implications will be globally if that happens. But at the same time, you know, when you've got a major faction of the Chinese government and the military whose missions are to take what they can take from a cybersecurity standpoint, and there is a huge focus on grabbing electronic health records, the question is why? There are those that might speculate that part of the why is the sort of the dark side of what Cara alluded to, which is the notion of whether, you know, whether the Chinese would be the operative or they would pass the data along. The fact that if you read APT1, the notion of being able to launch an overnight security attack whereby the vulnerabilities have already been found and the systems breached and affect several 100,000 people in one fell swoop across the United States by altering their IV pumps, for example, is not just science fiction, but something we have to really be concerned with. How about leaving that on a dark note?
Chuck, bring us up a little.
I'm
going to be all right, Chuck.
Really, truly, with this subject, I'm not sure we can cheer each other up on it. I think that, you know, both Buddy and Cara are exactly right. I mean, it's one of the things that, you know, I go back to 1999 when we started, actually in 1998 when we started worrying about Y2K. At that point in time, most of the biomedical engineering departments reported to engineering. They didn't, except in the larger institutions, they didn't report to IT, or there wasn't a department called clinical engineering that took care of these things. It was more of a, you know, they're just going to maintain them, they're going to install them, they're going to PM them, but other than that, they're not going to do anything other than depend upon the manufacturers to give them the right thing. And so one of the things we found when we start testing it, in 1999, the only medical device that we found was a group of defibrillators. And the reason for that is because 99 in a lot of machine code is a stop code. And so when it clicked over January 1, 1999, it actually stopped. It would no longer function without a firmware update. And so, you know, I think it's something that we all have to pay very close attention to is, you know, as Cara mentioned, they're all just computers. And there's a definite balance we have to have related to having access to, you know, making them wireless and making them programmable. You know, one of the holy grails that I was trying to do back when I was at Good Samaritan was, you know, I wanted to do an end-to-end integration between the IV pumps and the pain pumps and the pharmacy system, where the physician could actually put an order in and it would go to pharmacy, be checked by the pharmacist, and then it would auto-program the pumps, and the nurses would just check that and double-check it against the order, but they didn't have to key in the order in, you know, the dosages into the pumps because of, I'm dyslexic, give me a string of numbers and I'm going to reverse at least one or two of them. And this, you know, the same thing always happens, but you know, and I think Buddy mentioned, you know, why do we need to worry about, you know, or why are these hacks occurring? Well, some of it's because it's kind of like the chicken cross the road. It's because the damn road is just there, and people are going to do it, or they're going to try to do it to see if they can, and then they're going to report about it. You know, I'm not really sure how to calculate the risk, but one of the biggest challenges a lot of hospitals have, particularly in large medical centers, is making sure you know where all your devices are. And a lot of manufacturers have gone, and or organizations have purchased RFID tracking so they can keep up with the medical devices. In Columbus, we routinely had our monitors would be transported with patients, and we'd have to go track them down. So I think the threat is real. I think we have to be diligent about it. I'm not sure that you know, the FDA has the ultimate solution, so they'll not be hackable, because I think the things that are not hackable today, it's just a matter of time that somebody figures out how to do it.
Very good, very good. Now we have a couple of minutes for Q&A, so if you've got any questions, type them into the Q&A box, lower right-hand corner of your screen. Leave the default set to all panelists, and I'll take a look at them. We did receive a couple of questions ahead of time from our friend Ty Knox, VP and Central Region CIO at North Shore LIJ Health System. Let's start with the first one. Wondering if the panel has an opinion on the H.R. 6 21st Century Cures Bill that is sitting in the Senate. Do they think it will pass? And if so, how will it affect us? Chuck, you want to take that first?
Sure. Well, I think that based upon some of the, again, the signaling and stuff we've gotten from the Hill is I don't believe what we're going to see come out of the Senate is going to be a duplicate of what was passed in the House, particularly the interoperability pieces. I think it's going to look a little bit different. How different and what's it going to contain, that I haven't found out yet, but we're going to continue to ask the questions so we don't get surprised. But I think that the 21st Century Cures Bill, there's a lot of components to that. It's not just, I mean, it's a pretty good-sized bill. It's one of these things that covers a lot of avenues, and it's going to take, quite a bit of study to understand exactly what's in it, what the impact, because it's got components in it for the FDA, some of the other health regulators with the federal government. There is a section of it in the House bill that does away with the Standards Committee, the FICA Standards Committee, the ONC depends upon that. Right now, John Halimka is chair of, and they wanted to, make a change related to the Policy Committee, but the final version leaves that intact, but moves all the standards out to the standards bodies. I really don't have a feel of whether or not what's going to come out of the Senate is going to contain that language or not. We just have to wait and see, because the other piece of signaling that we're getting from the Senate is that they're probably not going to have something they're going to vote on until early in 2016, and so we'll have to wait and see what that's going to be. Now that the Senate is back in session again, or I think they are. Since I'm moving this week, I'm kind of out of touch, to tell you the truth, and to see what the conversation is discussed and take place on the Hill.
All right. Buddy, do you want to comment on either the 21st Century Cures Bill, and you already had some comments about ONC, so why don't you pick one of those two for the interest of time's sake and go with that?
The question's up on the screen. Second one, I've already opined a bit on ONC. Your comment, Chuck, about the lack of continuity is clearly a concern. There may be a couple of people there that are staff and not appointees that do have that continuity, but what I worry about is as you guys have seen also in practice, there have been so many times that we have had to ask for interpretations of the rules as to meaningful use, things have gotten so threaded with that, if you don't have someone that understands it from the beginning and knows how to follow the thread, getting clarity on interpretation is a problem. And that will be a practical impact of that lack of consistency. Again, I think there is a role for ONC. I believe that we need to have a voice in Washington that's connected with kind of the core of what happens with CHS and CMS. And I would like to see, something happening there that would give energy back to, and maybe some political will and power back to ONC in a way that ONC deserves, in a way that would be helpful to all of us.
Cara, you want to go with the 21st Century Cures Bill or ONC?
I'll talk a little bit about the Cures Bill. I can't say I'm that close to it, but if having read it a little bit and read some high points on it, it seems like there's a couple of things that, in terms of how it will affect us. The work that we're doing in our organizations around genomics, genetics, genomics, and personalized medicine, if this gets put into place, I think it might fast-track it a little bit. If I'm reading it correctly and I understand it correctly, it could promote more funding, NIH funding as well as FDA funding, and we know that there's been a lot of restriction on the NIH funding, or definitely has shrunk over the last few years. But if it can really help get patient trials and get through some of the things that have kind of been long processes for patients who are, really awaiting a new drug to cure their debilitating disease, that's a great thing for patients. But if we can also know that this is coming, it might hardwire our systems a lot more so that while a patient is being treated, if you know their genetic profile and you can figure out, what they have, it might allow us to get the right solution to them quicker. So in terms of the IT world, it could be something that gets us focused on bringing it to the next evolution of what IT can really mean to us, and make it even more meaningful, as well as make it better outcome for patients. But again, there's probably a lot in that bill, as Chuck alluded to. I mean, I think a lot of these bills sometimes surprise me because they seem like kind of really high level, and then you realize they threw a couple of things in here and there for a few other things that have nothing to do with it and it's direct correlation, but that's how I see it. I think it could be, definitely getting us thinking about things differently.
Yep. And let me jump back in just a second. Buddy raised a great point, so did Cara. I don't want anyone in the audience to believe that, our congressmen and senators are experts on what we do every day in healthcare. One of the best things we could probably do is reach out to them and explain how that we believe these things are going to impact. And I'm not, I'm not suggesting we start an email campaign, but it's pretty apparent that the lobbyists are very active in this space because there are quite a few companies that will benefit depending upon which way the legislation is written. And we also need to keep in mind is what's in the rules will be interpreted, as Buddy said, into regulation. And as we're seeing now with stage 2 and actually stage 1, the revisions that we're seeing coming out that's in OMB right now is final doesn't mean final. And, all through the meaningful use stages, we've gotten interpretations and reinterpretation of what the rules actually mean. And actually, depending upon who you ask, we've gotten multiple interpretations that were in conflict with each other. And so on the Policy Steering Committee for CHIME, I know that between myself, Liz Johnson, and Pam McNutt, we all three asked different people the same question and got 3 different answers, and that really creates some confusion. And we finally got an FAQ posted on it. So once FAQ is posted, that doesn't mean that they're not going to have another FAQ. So Buddy's absolutely right. It is confusing, and the more voices that we can get from this side of those of us that what I call our boots on the ground, that the stuff that we do every day, to help them understand what the impact of the legislation and the regulation is going to be, the better off we're going to be as an industry.
Great. Let me just read in a comment we got from our friend David Muntz, who was obviously very high up at ONC for a while. Continuity is important but not critical. There is staff who's been there from the beginning, so I think that's less of a concern. The real challenge is the lack of CIO and other clinical implementers who can offer pragmatic and practical regulations. The question is, should we stop meaningful use and focus on asking ONC to coordinate efforts across federal agencies? In 30 seconds, you want to touch on that, Cara?
Well, I always think more people who have boots on the ground would be helpful. I'm not sure how we get more involvement, and maybe this is a question back. I mean, I know we're trying to have vehicles in Washington, and we try to make ourselves present, and even in Chime as part of a lot of the work Leslie, Cragen, and others are doing. So I would love more opportunities for us to influence the change if I knew how. In terms of coordinating, I think that's outside of my level of expertise on the coordinating groups, and sure, it always makes sense to try to get people all on the same page, but the short-term win of trying to get people who understand more of what a life of a CIO is and things that they should be focusing on and making sure that meaningful use is really meaningful is really important. And how can we do that in a different way? If there are other ideas out there, I think we should move forward with trying to tactically implement them.
Chuck,
do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Chuck, 30 seconds, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that, you know, and some of the most the thoughtful conversations I had with ONCs when David was there, you know, his voice, the fact that he was an active CIO, a very good one when he was at Baylor, not that he's not a good one now, he still is, with the company he's with, I know I'm going to pay for that, is that, you know, one of the things that there's a lot of questions out there is, has meaningful use run its course? And so the question is, what was the purpose of meaningful use? The purpose of it was to move more rapidly toward this thing called electronic medical record, which we have done. And so it is absolutely obvious there needs to be much, much deeper coordination across all the federal agencies. And so I'm not sure that ONC's focus should be totally off of meaningful use. As long as that regulation is on the books and we as an industry is going to be held accountable for it, we need to have a voice inside the Beltway on this. But we also do definitely need the coordination among the federal agencies, and even it needs to roll out to the state level as well.
Buddy, 30 seconds, please.
Two very quick thoughts. The first is, yes, meaningful use is struggling. There is probably prophecy in David's question. Second thought, I'd like to know what David's answer to that question is.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, we'll have to save that for our next event. We are out of time. In fact, we are over time, but we were having so much fun that we just kept it going. So I want to thank our panel, Cara, Babachicos, Chuck Christian, and Buddy Hickman. I know they are all joining us in future All-Stars events, and we will let events and news determine most of the topics we cover, which is kind of a fun way to do these. I want to thank our segment sponsor for medical device security, Proofpoint. As I mentioned, you'll get an email when our archive has been posted to YouTube. For those who have the Chime CHCIO certification, attending our webinars gets you one CEU, so let Chime know you are here. If you've asked us to do so, we will. Sponsorship opportunities, contact Nancy Wilcox. Questions, comments, you can contact me. And you can go to our site to view our upcoming schedule of webinars. So again, I want to thank Cara, Chuck, Buddy, and Proofpoint. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.